Welcome back to the Money and Wealth Show. I'm Sterling Fox. Our special guest this week is energy analyst Byron King with Agora Financial. Byron, just before the break, we were talking about the deep water catastrophe off the U.S. Gulf Coast. In fact, as I understand it, and you're the energy guy, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but as I understand it, the deepest deep water oil drilling operation in the world right now is about to begin off the east coast of Newfoundland, Canada, administered by Chevron Canada. Is this true? First of all, do you know it to be the deepest deep water rig on Earth?
Well, I know that Chevron is a pioneer in deep water drilling, and
Okay.
Chevron has immense capabilities. I have heard what you just said about that well, and sometimes the oil companies, don't tell you everything because they want to keep certain information proprietary. But Chevron is one of the world's pioneering companies in deep water development. In fact, in March of this year, 2010, I spent a couple of days on a deep water drilling vessel in the Gulf of Mexico, a transocean ship called the Inspiration that's under lease to Chevron.
Okay.
And Chevron was in the process of drilling a 33,000-foot well in 6,700 feet of water. So I know something about what Chevron does and how Chevron does it. And I think that Chevron has an excellent safety record and a very, very safety conscious approach to operations. I think safety is a value at Chevron Corporation, and they do a good job drilling wells.
The government of Canada has ordered a review. Certainly not a moratorium, not a stop work order that you talked about in our opening segment with, as is the case with everybody in the Gulf of Mexico right now. But it's reasonable to assume that following a pretty stem-to-stern government thorough review, they'll be allowed to proceed. You've just said you're pretty comfortable with the way they operate. Given the emotions that come out of the catastrophe like BP in the Gulf of Mexico, can you at least appreciate some real reluctance on the part of a lot of Canadians to let this thing go forward?
Oh, I understand the instinctive reaction of people to say, oh, this well blew out. Let's stop all drilling and let's not do anything. The problem is that you really ought to think it through. If you're not going to drill for oil, where will you get your oil from in the future? You're going to import it. You're going to go without. You're going to conserve. You're going to drive less, fly less, use fewer. There goes the 2,500 mile Caesar salad that you thought you were going to have for lunch this afternoon. So you want to be careful about that. I would compare it also to, for example, when an airplane crashes. It's a terrible accident. People die. All sorts. It's a big mess. But we don't shut down the airline industry for that. When the Air France flight from Brazil to France last year disappeared over the Atlantic Ocean, we didn't shut down flights between Brazil and France. They didn't shut down Air France. They didn't shut down Airbuses. And they don't even know why that airplane crashed.
They've never found the plane.
They've found little bits and pieces of the wreckage,
That's
but
right.
They never found They do not have the black boxes. They don't know why the airplane crashed, but they're still flying, hundreds of flights between South America and Europe every day. And to say that, we had this big blowout in the Gulf of Mexico, I would say that it's a one-off event. Not that BP wanted it to happen, but BP has a different culture of operations than does Chevron. I feel comfortable not speaking for Chevron because I don't work for Chevron,
right.
but from what I saw firsthand on my visit to a Chevron well drilled in the Gulf of Mexico in one of the most modern deep water drilling ships in the world, I think Chevron has a very strong culture of safety. And I think that the people of Canada should be willing to, scrutinize Chevron, send your best regulators out there, ask them the hardest questions you've got, and when you're satisfied with their answers, let them drill if it looks like everything's okay. And I think that you will find everything will be okay.
Tell us a little bit about the story behind the story in the United States, Byron, this regulatory agency that is supposedly in the pocket of the petro sector, giving them permits to develop deep sea underwater drilling rigs. Is it the MMA?
The MMS.
MMS,
the Minerals Management Service.
Correct. Are they as malleable as they've certainly been portrayed on these 24-hour news channels?
Well, I think you need to understand the nature of regulation in general and then go back to the Mineral Management Service. You could also say in the United States, for example, that Wall Street has very intimate connections with the Securities and Exchange Commission. People graduate from law school and they work for the SEC for a few years. They get their experience, and then they go back and they work for a big Wall Street firm or a bank or a law firm that deals with these people. And then when the presidential administration comes in and they need new people to staff the SEC, they go back to those law firms and those banks and those places, and they pluck people out and they put them. So there's a lot of back and forth between industry and government in, say, securities regulation. You see much the same thing in, for example, the Food and Drug Administration with respect to food. I could go through a long list. So now that we understand that a little better, now let's look at the Mineral Management Service. Yes, it is an agency that's supposed to oversee the development of the offshore resources of the United States, but who can work for the Minerals Management Service? You have to understand something about offshore development. You have to understand something about petroleum or engineering and rigs and how to drill wells, things like that. Where do you get that experience? You get that experience working in the industry. So people make careers in government and industry back and forth and what have you. The idea is that you have to understand which hat you're wearing at what time.
Because otherwise you get some serious optical problems where the regulator is receiving Super Bowl tickets from the oil company they're about to give a new permit to, and it does not pass the smell test.
Things like that are entirely unethical. Things like that should not happen. There clearly is a culture of it's just a culture of letting too much go on there. That was an improper culture. It should not have been that way. You hear these horrible stories about, like you say, the Super Bowl tickets, or money changing hands, or gambling and drinking, all sorts of things that just shouldn't be that way. And it's an institutional failure of government, and it's been that way for many, many years through many different presidential administrations. And somehow or another, you might say the industry managed to capture the regulatory agency, capture the high ground there.
Indeed. Our special guest this week is energy analyst Byron King. We'll talk Canada's oil sands after this break here on the Money and Wealth Show.
Good afternoon. My name is Larry Ray. I'm the president and CEO of Gold Ray Resources Corp., a company that trades on the TSX Venture Exchange and has the majority of its operations in China. We are currently developing a resource there with limited production at this time. Our goal is to increase this production up to about 1,200 to 1,500 tons per day. And to do that, we are negotiating with several Chinese companies, one of which will become our partner either directly into the company or into the project, which will allow us to move the project up to the desired tonnage. For further information, please visit our website at goldray.com or phone 604-531-9639.